you and I have never really talked about this before, John, but for years and years, a lot of wrestling fans all over the world, I'm talking about kids now at this point, were under the belief that, well, this is the second Ultimate Warrior. The first Ultimate Warrior died, and this is a new guy under the same gimmick. And what's crazy to me is it's 1992. So it's not like there's the internet. It's not like all of us kids were logging on to AOL and getting our scoops, right? So how in the world does that get passed around and become an urban legend with little kids in Ohio and Canada and Alabama that, hey, that's the second Ultimate Warrior. The first one died. I mean, you said even you had heard that. Where does that silly shit come from?
And how it got spread around. It was unbelievable. Right. I mean, it was just unreal. You know, I've always been such a big fan of wrestling before television, you know, before the 1940s, when guys like Londos and Sonnenberg and Strangler Lewis and Gotch would go into a town and you draw these, 40,000 people. How do you do that before television and internet and all this? It's just crazy. How do you have this rumor go around about Ultimate Warrior is dead and they've replaced him with some cyborg or something? And this is not the same Ultimate Warrior. Yeah, oh yeah, I heard the same thing. It's a crazy rumor. It's hard to believe you have two goofs that would be as wild as the Ultimate Warrior. I hope there weren't two in the world.
We know that eventually we get.
By the way, I digress. I'm sorry. I was sitting with Warrior one time, and he always liked me, and I liked him, by the way. So don't get me wrong. He was nice as he could be to me. I guess the association from Dallas and Skandor Akbar, where we both started. And he's sitting there one day, and he's got a Warrior jacket on. He's got a Warrior ball cap on. He's got a Warrior Halliburton. He's got a Warrior logo on the front of his jacket, and he's got tassels on his sleeves. That's how he's walking through the airport. And he's sitting there talking to me, and he goes, I don't know why these fucking marks won't leave me alone.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I don't know either. No idea.
Yeah,
he was nuts.
I've often wondered about that because I had a conversation once with Jim Ross because sometimes if he's going to go make a personal appearance, I mean, I hate to break it to fans, but when he just goes down to breakfast in Jacksonville Beach, he's not wearing a cowboy hat. He's just regular old Jim Ross. But if he's going to make a personal appearance, people expect the cowboy hat. So he could pretty much make his way around the airport unbothered. But man, when he puts on the black cowboy hat, it turns into a meet and greet.
Yeah. That's a freaking shining billboard. Yeah. Because it's hard. You can't hide that. Yeah, 100%.
So it would have been easier for the Ultimate Warrior to blend in, even with his, massive frame, if he was just in gym clothes and didn't have all the Warrior regalia with him. But
yeah, he actually had the arm tassels on his jacket and in the airport. And then he says, I don't know why these fucking marks won't leave me alone. I don't know either.
The only thing that would have been better would have been if he had an assistant or a handler who followed behind him with a boombox playing the theme song. Papa Shango is going to get a pretty big time opportunity. It happens in a down period of the company, November of 92. Clearly business is down, way down. And he finds himself wrestling Bret Hart for the WWF title on Saturday night's main event. Now, once upon a time, that would have been a really big deal. Do you think, the real life Charles Wright cared about things like that? I've seen some guys who get really excited about their opportunities and their moments, whether it's a title shot or a title run or any sort of main event opportunity, like it means something to them. And then I've talked to other guys who are like, just another day at the office. I got paid well. Which one of those do you think Charles Wright is?
Godfather's a very, very smart guy. And I guarantee you he noticed the crowd was down. Not his fault. Business sucked at that point. After Hogan's run was over, they always say business was cyclical. It's not cyclical. It was talent driven. So when you had a guy like Hogan, you put everything behind this guy. And when Hogan takes the leave of absence or something, business goes down until you find the next guy. So that's why it's cyclical and you're in that down trough because of it. Brett liked Charles a lot. Charles was a good worker and a very tough guy. But Brett really had a lot of respect for Godfather and would want to have a great match. And they do. Those guys could work. But I guarantee you, Godfather noticed that. I get my big break. It's you have to. You have to notice, you get your big break. When I got to WWE in 95, I thought I finally got here and business sucks. I missed the run. That's what you're thinking. So yeah, absolutely 100% he noticed it.
It's interesting to take a look at his career because after being in such a high profile opportunity in 1992, working with the Ultimate Warrior before WrestleMania, after WrestleMania, he's involved somehow in the WrestleMania main event. He's going to main event a Saturday night's main event for the world title against Bret Hart.
Vince loved Charles.
Yes.
Loved him like a son. I mean, loved him. He called him one time. He said, Vince had that Boss Hoss motorcycle.
Okay.
Those Boss Hogs, like with the big 350 engine. Remember those big things?
Yes.
Vince wrecked it and almost killed himself. You remember he broke his hip or his pelvis or something. Vince had a really bad wreck on it that wasn't really reported because he was driving probably 120 miles an hour and probably under the influence. I don't know if he was or not, so nobody's going to repeat that on the internet. But Vince was definitely flying.
He was a serious speeder. That's not a secret. Yeah.
Yeah, but Charles had it up against the wall, and he's got the thing revved, and he's got the wheels spinning, smoke going everywhere, and he looks around, and there's Vince. And Vince says, Charles, would you do that to your bike? And Godfather goes, like a little kid, he goes, no. He goes, then don't do it to mine. But Vince didn't care. He thought he was funny. Vince loved Charles. Somebody else, Vince would have fired him and probably sued him, but Vince, that was like his son.
I want to ask a little bit about, when he disappears, because it does feel like he's phased down pretty heavily in 1993. He spends a little bit of time in Memphis working with Jerry Lawler and then Owen Hart, but then it feels like he's just gone. And he's going to work some indie dates. He'll work some auto tours. He'll be doing that as Papa Shango, which is cool, I guess. Maybe it's pre-internet or maybe he had permission. I don't know. But when he comes back in late 94, he's the Extreme Fighting Machine. And this doesn't, again, 94 WWF, not exactly hot. It's not going to be his best run in the business. But I've always felt like was a play on words for chemo, which was a UFC fighter. It's worth a Google. If you want to throw that in your, Google machine, you can type in UFC chemo and you'll see.
Okay, UFC fan. Who grabbed chemo's ponytail on top and was holding on to it? Was from the bottom. Was it Gracie?
Oh my gosh. I wish if you wouldn't ask, put me on the spot, I would have known that.
Chemo had that, ponytail, had his hair up in the thing. And back then, there were no rules. And somebody grabbed that ponytail to hold it and to control his head. And I don't know if it was Gracie. I can't remember who it was. Chemo was a bad dude.
And he used to, there was one fight where he carried a crucifix. He carried
a huge crucifix all the way to the ring.
It's crazy. Why don't you think, the Extreme Fighting Machine, why don't you think, again, as a reminder, the UFC is getting hot. They debut in late 93. There's a lot of controversy. We're going to see, politicians like Mr. McCain go out there and call it human cockfighting. But it's called Ultimate Fighting Championship. Well, one of their stars is Chemo. So now we've got the Extreme Fighting Machine. It just doesn't really hit. Do you think that this is a case of timing? Like in a few years later during the Attitude Era, I think Papa Shango would have been an even bigger star. And I think a few years after that, when the UFC really got hot, having a UFC gimmick could have worked in. Are both of those gimmicks just a case of bad timing?
100%. No doubt about it. He had Warrior when Warrior was on his way down. You replaced Hogan. We've talked about it before. You replaced Hogan with Warrior. You should have put a mailman at least in between to give the chance for Warrior to be able to carry that title. Nobody carried that title after Hogan carried it, especially the way he got it off the Giant. And so you had a downtime against a down wrestler in the Warrior who was not at his peak anymore, but on the way down. You're trying to rejuvenate him. And you also got an opponent that you're trying to bring in. Tough timing for Papa Shango. It was just bad as it could be. Plus, business was bad. Business was bad here, too. Vince always said he hated to be ahead of the curve. He wanted to be just behind the curve. It's like they say, which Mr. Briscoe hates this, pioneers get arrows, settlers get land. And, the first people there are the ones that have to build the plan for the rest. You want to be just behind the curve. And Vince was ahead of the curve on the UFC with Kama. If he had been a few years later, it'd have been established. I think it'd been better. Kama was a good character, and Charles could do that character. He could do all the fighting. I really don't know what his background was other than Window Kata.
Right.
But he obviously could do all the kick fighting. He could do everything. He's a trained fighter. He's a good fighter. And he could have done really well with that, but I think the timing was just horrible. Plus, business was terrible. Nothing got over during that time. I mean, you can't hardly name a character during that time that got over consistently, that was created during that time. You may have named characters that came along after that became huge names, that suffered through that, but you didn't know characters that were built during that time.
Don't we all love summer vacation, relaxing, laying out by the pool, barbecues, hitting the beach, doing, well, nothing? Well, how about a summer vacation from your house payments? With SaveWithConrad.com, you can do just that. Reduce your monthly payments by making the equity you built up in your home work for you. You can roll together those high interest rate credit cards into one lower monthly payment, and perhaps access some of that newfound equity to turn your house into your dream home with no money out of pocket. And how about this? You get to skip your next 2 house payments. That's right. You won't have to make your June or your July house payment. You're done until August 1st. Go right now to SaveWithConrad.com. Let my team run the numbers for you for free. There's no obligation, and if we can't help you save some cash, we won't waste your time. And did I mention we're offering a 3-year guarantee right now? That's right. That means if at any point interest rates improve over the next 3 years, you get a free refi. That's right. No new lender fees from us. So you get to save money now without wasting money later when the rates improve on a whole second set of closing costs. Why not go to SaveWithConrad.com and get a guarantee? Save money now and save money later with your friend in the mortgage business. That's me, Conrad Thompson at SaveWithConrad.com. Shoot me an email at Conrad@SaveWithConrad.com. Give us a call at 888-425-0105. Or get yourself a quick quote, even talk to a live person right now at SaveWithConrad.com. NMLS number 2129, equal housing lender. Let's take a summer vacation from house payments at SaveWithConrad.com.